Gungadin! Gungadin! Gungadin, what does that mean? Who knows? Anyways, welcome to our lovely little show today. We've got a really nice lineup for you. Cam Battley's going to be here shortly. We're talking to Todd Harrison from CB1 Capital, who is one of the people that every time he talks, I learn something. Probably mostly because I shut up. How are you doing, Ed?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little frazzled.
You're a little frazzled, eh?
Yeah.
You know, you said that yesterday that the market might come back with a tradable bottom, and behold, you were right. Did you
I took a guess.
It?
I flipped a coin, and I went like this when we were talking, and I thought, heads is up.
Beautiful. So you were right.
Well, you know what? There's some indicators I thought were pretty telling.
Yes.
And so that's all I did was tell what they said.
Very cool. Before we get to all that, here's the news.
You're going to read
Namaste Technologies today announced the company's wholly owned subsidiary, Cannmart, has signed an agreement to acquire the domain buds2go.ca. Cannmart purchased the buds2go.ca domain along with social media accounts and all intellectual property for a cash payment of $300,000. The acquisition of buds2go.ca will establish high-ranking organic search results for many targeted and valuable keywords and supports the company's vision to become a global leader in cannabis e-commerce and technology. The buds2go.ca domain receives approximately 400,000 site visits every month. And Liberty Health Sciences today announced their plans to open 2 new dispensaries in Miami and Dania Beach by the end of November and 3 more across Florida by the end of this December. Each of the dispensaries will feature free 24-hour delivery service throughout their service areas. Cannaccord Genuity Growth Corp and Columbia Care LLC announced they have entered into a definitive business combination between the two companies. The business combination will be structured as a merger between Columbia Care and a newly formed Delaware subsidiary of Cannaccord. Cannaccord will amend its articles to provide for a new class of proportionate voting shares which will be issued to holders of Columbia Care securities who reside in the United States. Those outside the U.S. will receive common shares of Cannaccord. Following the closing of the business combination, it is expected that former holders of Columbia Care securities will hold approximately 91% of the outstanding equity interests in the resulting entity. The remaining approximately 9% will be held by the security holders of Cannaccord. Completion of the business combination is currently expected to occur in the first quarter of 2019. The name of Cannaccord is anticipated to be changed to Columbia Care Inc. And Hexo Corp announced that it has filed a short-form base shelf prospectus with securities regulators in each of the provinces and territories of Canada. The shelf prospectus is valid for a 25-month period, during which Hexo may make offerings of up to $800 million of common shares, warrants, subscription receipts, and units. TerrAscend announced their third quarter 2018 financial results, reporting a net loss of $2.8 million or 3 cents per share. The company's revenue increased to $1.8 million, up from $9,000 in the previous quarter. As of September 30th, the company held $15.1 million in cash and cash equivalents. Further highlights of the quarter include the launch of their premium cannabis brand, Haven Street, with 48 SKUs in dry flower and pre-roll forms. An arrangement with Canopy Growth and Canopy Rivers to reorganize the capital of the company and obtain waivers of certain contractual covenants currently restricting TerrAscend from operating in the U.S. is underway. The company has also secured province supply agreements in Ontario, British Columbia, Nova Scotia, and Prince Edward Island for the adult use cannabis market. Medicure also announced their financial results for the quarter ended September 30th, 2018, reporting a net loss of $545,000. The company recorded net revenue of $7.3 million and has $72 million in cash and short-term investments as of September 30th. The company continues to experience an increase in patient market share and an increase in the number of new hospital customers using the AgriStat trademark. National Access Cannabis Corp announced another 9 retail locations have received cannabis retail licenses and are expected to open this week in Alberta and Manitoba. The addition of 9 new stores more than doubles the national number of company-owned and licensed cannabis retail stores to 17, the most of any cannabis retailer in the country, excluding the government of New Brunswick. Indiva Limited announced they've signed a non-binding LOI with Essence Europe for the acquisition of 100% of a medical cannabis cultivation and handling license in Denmark. Essence Europe received its license from the Danish Medicines Agency in January. The acquisition will be funded with a combination of 1.6 million Indiva common shares plus 1.1 million US in cash payable over 3 years. Indiva plans to pursue the cultivation and worldwide distribution of EU GMP certified medical cannabis and cannabis-derived products. Aleafia Health Inc. will launch a Canada-wide cannabis retail joint venture with Saruya Private Equity. Saruya will also make a $10 million strategic investment in Aleafia via a non-brokered private placement financing, and Aleafia will invest $5 million of such gross proceeds of the private placements into the joint venture. The brand's JV will conduct business under the name Flying High Brands Inc., with Aleafia owning 51% and Saruya owning 49%. The joint venture enables multiple income streams throughout the value chain, with Aleafia's cultivation producing cannabis for processing, extraction, packaging, and eventual listing in retail locations and with provincial distributors. Cureleaf announced the launch of Cureleaf Hemp, a line of premium hemp-based CBD products. The natural, non-intoxicating products meet the strictest quality standards and are derived from hemp farmed in the United States. The company has also opened their 5th retail location in Arizona after acquiring dispensary operator Midtown Roots. And Horizon's ETFs Management Canada announced decreased risk ratings applicable to certain of its ETFs, including Horizon's Blockchain Technology and Hardware Index ETF and their S&P TSX 60 Index. Bitcoin fell by more than 10% yesterday to a low of $4,237, its weakest level since October 2017. The latest collapse and sell-off has been catalyzed by disagreements within the coin developer community about concerns about regulatory scrutiny. Ethereum is the 3rd largest cryptocurrency by market cap and has fallen by 14% since Monday. Overall, Bitcoin is down 66% since the beginning of the year, while the industry's market cap has been reduced by around 75% since the beginning of the year. What do you think?
Lots of news there.
How about that Cannaccord deal, though, where Cannaccord starts a SPAC and then merges it with its own cannabis company? Cannaccord is coming down market. They're actually getting into the origination game. Well, I mean, not originating deals, but actually originating companies.
I must have missed that one.
We just had it on.
Oh.
Anyway, so did you catch any of those?
No, I did. I did. I saw the thing about Aleafia.
Oh, okay.
Because I have an
interest.
No, I missed.
Did you make any money on Aleafia or Cannabo during that transaction? So you know who the Saruya family is?
Very wealthy family.
Bunch of wealthy guys who backed Aleafia, Aphria. They're all up in Aphria. They're all up in Scythian Biosciences, that Andy D deal. And yeah, deep pockets coming down market themselves. Now they're putting their names on stuff. They used to be invisible, but I guess they're liking the limelight.
I liked it when I was invisible. I wish I would have stayed.
Oh, really? I thought you loved being in the limelight. I was under the impression
that was a bit of a double entendre that only a few people will understand.
Oh.
Anyway,
because secretly this has changed your life. Anyways, I'm going to start off with a quick look at the... oh, wait a sec. Before we do that, Ed, I just want to mention to you that we're going to have Cam Battley on in...
soon?
Yeah, pretty much as soon as we decide here. And in the meantime, though, I would like to draw your attention to the Midas Letter indexes, which I have up on my screen right now. And you will notice one color dominates.
Green. I don't notice any.
It's coming.
That's why I wore a green golf shirt today.
There you have it.
Okay.
So what color do you see?
I see green, green.
Exactly. You can't see that monitor?
I can see it.
Okay, good. Look at that one.
Okay.
Just because we're trying to show less of the back of your head and show more of your face.
You're trying to show the less of my bald spot.
Yeah, well.
And more of the hair all over.
Exactly, and those vibrant eyes that are full of madness and intelligence and wisdom. Anyways, the first thing that I am going to look at here after this is we're going to look at these two charts here, which is the S&P 500 5-day look and the Midas Letter Canadian Cannabis Index 5-day look. And I'd like to draw the audience's attention here and assembled to the fact that yet again, we have a close correlation in performance between these two indexes over the last 10 days. I'm only showing 5 days so that the patterns are even remarkably similar.
Yeah.
So, people are looking at the sell-off and going, oh my God, what's wrong with the cannabis market? It's falling! And really, it has nothing to do with the cannabis market. It has everything to do with the S&P. And by extension, the general global economy marketplace. So what would you say about that, Ed? Would you say you concur with that?
Yeah, obviously, like maybe in a market that's overvalued, like the S&P market.
Overvalued.
Well, I'm only saying it now because in retrospect, it's just dropped 13% or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. So when things are frothy, lots of things can happen. Then things correct, and everything corrects with it because, maybe the big rise was partly due to a lot of the money pouring into the FANG stocks. I mean, it's kind of a...
The what stocks?
FANG stocks.
Oh, FANG. FANG?
FANG.
I thought you said fag stocks. I was going to be like, what?
No.
Hey,
FANG,
what are you saying?
FANG
stocks.
Yeah, and look,
what? We got to create our own designation.
We got to be diligent.
Diligent.
Yeah, and make sure that if the trend is turning, there's some great opportunity. But
yeah, so you call the tradable bottom, and I'm just looking at the end of the 4th day in here on the TSX or on the S&P 500 rather. And at the very end of the day, there was a consolidated bottom here that had nonetheless turned green to the upside.
Right.
So that was is that a fair is it a fair analysis to say that should be a trigger that the next day might be, a reversal?
And we talked about specifically the move in Amazon that I saw and the S&P. The candles were nice candles, and there's lots of pessimism. So this is where things move from.
So this is where money's made. Volatility is our friend.
Volatility is our friend. Yeah.
So now, if you were a betting man, what would you say tomorrow's action was going to be? An extension of the rally? I'm
looking at the Apple chart here, and I don't like what I see there. I don't particularly like it. I want to see, we're going to need some time down here. I think it's going to be a sideways sort of choppy market, and some things are going to do well. Mm-hmm. What? I keep moving, looking all over the place.
It's like monkey see, monkey do. All I got to do is look over there. I'll get you to look over there.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Hey,
how you doing? Hey, how you doing?
Okay. So,
have you ever been in a parade?
No.
Do you want to be in a parade?
No.
You don't want to be on a parade? You can be the guy at the front with the baton, marching with a big hat. No. Come on, I got some interest.
Did you give me a ticket? Did you give me a free ticket?
I got you a position at the head of the St. Patty's Day Parade.
With Sean Jeez.
You got to pay for it, mind you.
Soft.
But it's a donation going to a good cause. Anyway, so...
Sure, when is that?
The St. Patrick's Day Parade?
Yeah.
Christmas.
They should have it on St. Patrick's Day.
That's right. Get Sean on the phone right now. He might already have his head wrapped around that.
I don't think that guy's had a drink in 25 years.
I've never drank with Sean.
No, you wouldn't, because I think he...
What kind of Irishman is that? I ask you.
Well...
Anyways, so let's take a look at the large cap
he's real.
index here, up close now.
Can I
Yeah, looks like you're going to have to, because they seem to be intent on you watching, me watching you, watching me, watching you. Any minute. Oh, look at that. There it is. Oh, I see. The NDI did not extend to those screens this time. That was bizarre. Freaked me out. But look. So here's the...
You know what I'd like to see, just looking at that chart?
What?
If you sort of draw a channel on that last meltdown from, in the say, the last 2 weeks.
Oh, wrong program. Hold on. We have to get out of the full screen. We have to go over to the Quote Stream Media Pro. Then we're going to switch to the... Oh, I thought I left enough room in there to switch back over to here.
Yeah.
And we're going to make this the MLCC Portfolio Manager over here. And then we're going to take that and go copy. And we're going to put this little sucker up there and stick that in there. Boom! Technology at its finest.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, what I'd like, you know, what you really want to see, I'm going to have to stand up.
Stand up, Ed.
Okay, so
you got legs. He knows how.
So you know,
to
we
use
see this channel here, like this pretty narrow channel, but pretty defined.
Yeah.
Same thing to the downside here,
Yeah.
and then we had a little blip here, and maybe a bit of a departure, and we're moving this way. But now this seems to be breaking out of this, which is what you want to see. Like, you know, I can't say it enough. The trend is your friend. So. And these are very short-term things, but we need to see, you know, we want to get this over moving this way so the downward pressure at least is
moving in the right direction.
Arrested. Yeah, it looks promising, and I feel, and I saw on the monitor as I was coming in today that the TSX had its biggest day in a long time today. This was one of their biggest days. And the other thing that's interesting is that commodities seem. You know, after we get these big corrections like we had in the Dow Jones, S&P, and we had one several months ago, beginning of the year, when they come back, quite often there's a new leadership. And so let's look to see if commodity prices start to firm in this cycle. Because we're basically, regardless of what happens, like today we saw every commodity on my page was up, I think, except maybe nat gas was down a little bit. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, new trends start after big changes. And we just saw some big changes. And maybe some of this marijuana money might end up in the metals and mining thing. Maybe. Maybe people...
Assuming that we actually get a sustained recovery in metals and mining.
Well, that's why, you know, I think for that to happen...
The futures markets are layered over top of every commodity that matters. Yeah. And so the value, again, the value of commodities is not able to be reflected in the price of commodities because the futures market is dysregulated, unregulated, malregulated, whatever you want to call it. But the Commodities Futures Trading Commission is in some state of collusion with the largest investors in the futures market to aid and abet them in their effort to control the price.
Steve Dunn, for instance, the CEO of Crown Mining, is he said that and he sent me articles that the copper market is heavily shorted. The gold markets are heavily
shorted in physical or in futures?
In futures.
Oh, okay.
And but that's enough to keep the price down.
Well, of course.
But look what happened to natural gas.
Well,
they tried to do it with natural gas. There was huge bets natural gas, and yet,
you know what happened there? People went too far on the short side in both oil and natural gas. They ran into this mutual covering contango situation where, like,
but I think a lot of people that are in, let's say, you know, you're sitting with a lot of money in the U.S. And the U.S. has this view that they know everything. And that's only because they're the biggest.
The Americans?
Well, you know, for instance, they're not big resource guys because they don't have a lot of resources. Well, they have a lot of resources.
Do you know who the biggest investor in Inco was during its construction and heyday? Which used to be called, I can't remember, had a very simple name, but before it was Inco.
International Nickel Company.
International Nickel, thank you. Do you know who the biggest investor was, the biggest underwriter of that project? JP Morgan.
There you go.
Know who the biggest underwriter of the post-Yukon gold rush was? Guggenheim family. So, not that the Guggenheim qualifies as an American name in the first generation, but my point being is that the Americans were all up in the resources long before the Canadians took over.
Sure.
So, you know,
I know,
sweeping generalizations aside.
The big money is the FANG stocks. FANG
stocks.
But what if we start to see what happened to natural gas spill out into another commodity. You know, we may get it. We may get this market. I mean, the one thing about copper is it's every day it's being consumed. Sooner or later.
I had some for breakfast this morning.
I said hello to one.
Did you? I accidentally kicked one in the street.
Yeah.
So we were talking about,
sure.
I want to quickly touch on acreage holdings. So we had that conversation where we pointed out in their listing statement that they'd raised all this money at 5 and 6 cents.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the CFO, Glenn Leibowitz, who gave me an explanation as to that was used in settlement of a debt to the holder, to a lender in the shell that they took over, which was called Applied Inventions. And apparently, he tells me that was, nobody got 5-cent paper in the resulting issuer, is the point. Nobody got 6-cent paper. That's the point he's trying to make. Then we were talking about the proportional voting shares versus the subordinate voting shares. We don't even care about the super voting shares because we know what that means. That means nobody really gets a vote anyways. But it was the conversion rate of the subordinate shares to the subordinate, or the proportionate voting shares to the subordinate shares. They carry a 40-to-1 ratio, and the average deemed value on the consolidated capitalization sheet is 620. So my question was, does that mean that the actual cost basis and the deemed basis for these roll-ups that receive these Class D units is at 620 divided by 40? And I was not able to understand the explanation he gave me. But I want to make clear that we have agreed that the 5 and 6 cent allocation in the consolidated table, nobody got 5 and 6 cent paper.
It sounded.
It's just looks weird. Well, and the date of it was October 15th, 2018. You know,
nobody called me up for those shares.
Well, that's just the thing. So, I don't know whether it's just a,
it's the way it's reported.
It's the way it's reported in the listing statement, whether it was a misreporting, whatever. But we're not going to look at acreage and think that there's a boatload of 5 and 6 cent shares coming to hit the market anytime soon.
No.
So we'll leave that alone. Now, I did have a conversation with Todd Harrison earlier about these super voting structures and a couple of other things, and this is what he had to say about that.
Okay, I'm interested in this.
Hey, welcome back. Joining me again is Todd Harrison, the founding partner and CIO of CB1 Capital Management. Todd, thanks for joining me again today.
Thank you.
Todd, I wanted to run through a couple of things with you and get your thoughts on, we'll start with this idea that we have a lot of these companies in the U.S. coming to the Canadian market with very large market caps. We'll use Acreage Holdings as an example. Came to market with a $2.4 billion market cap, call it, after doing a $25 per share IPO. And the companies are demonstrating this propensity to come to market with a super voting structure that precludes the ability of retail shareholders from participating meaningfully on a voting basis in the direction of the company. And I'm curious as to how does that affect how you feel about these companies?
Well, I mean, listen, it's not optimal, but it's also not the first time we've seen this. Facebook, I believe, has a similar structure, and we've seen others. Certainly not the best case scenario if you're looking at building a relationship with your investors and one of meritocracy that you're going to be held accountable for. But I think what we're seeing with a lot of these U.S. multi-state operators that are coming to Canada is you're seeing a lot of hair on these things, right? There's a lot of warrants, there's a lot of fluff in there. Canadian elbow grease, we'll call it for lack of a better term. And, I think this is just sort of the cost of doing business, given that these names can't list more traditional exchanges, and they are making deals with these shell companies for RTOs so that they can get public. But as a whole, I think for any of these multi-state operators, we're sort of throwing a dart from a valuation standpoint. We're going to need a couple of quarters, a couple of years even, for these companies to really start to grow into these multiples and start to demonstrate earnings power. I think we think they will. We own all of these companies, and we continue to buy it under market here.
Oh, so you're buying these companies when they come to market?
Yep. We were buying partial positions for sure. And I've been on Wall Street 30 years. When these stocks break issue price, traditionally that's a pretty negative sign. But with RTOs, it's very different than IPOs in that these bankers are not sitting there supporting the deals. So they are free trading, and you have a lot of, I think, fast money that was buying these things for an initial pop. We're playing long ball here. We think that the best is in front of the U.S. operators, both in terms of institutions. That demand, institutional demand, is still on the horizon. We think Canada turns buyer, and we think the U.S. market, by and large, with the end products and a lot of the use cases that we think will emerge, are going to really drive these earnings going forward. But literally, like first inning stuff right now, just coming to market and getting comfortable in its own skin. Sure.
So we look at the biggest companies. GW Pharma, you were mentioning earlier, has had a sort of revaluation to the downside. What do you think is driving that, and what do you think that the prognosis is for the near term for GW?
Yeah, no, so, still our favorite position, still our largest holding. Price doesn't change that. Facts aren't insults, right? Stock was at 180, on the back of getting approval for Epidiolex, which is their epilepsy drug. FDA approval, the DEA came out with a Schedule 5, which was best case scenario. And then you saw just the entire biotech complex come for sale. I think the space is down 20-25% since the beginning of October. So, GW is not immune. Corbis, another one of our top holdings, also wasn't immune. But we look at GW, and I really, I say this all the time, but I think it really encapsulates sort of the market's misunderstanding with cannabis. People still think this is a discretionary vice. Not too many people are even contemplating cannabis as a biotech play, and certainly the efficacious agility. We own this for brain cancer, right? We think they're an oncology company dressed up as an epilepsy platform. But until that data comes out, and still they can't release it because too many people are still surviving from February 2017. We're talking about brain cancer here. Right. Pretty exciting stuff, but until the results come out, I think people are still going to look at this thing and look at it as an epilepsy platform. And certainly Epidiolex is awesome, but we think there's a lot more to the story.
Interesting. So are you focused a lot on the idea of cannabinoids as pharmaceutical ingredients to treat indications in maladies like cancer, like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's? I mean, all of these things are demonstrating, at least at preliminary basis, some efficacy as a result of cannabis treatment. So are there other...
Yeah, no, certainly... we want to follow the science. And, we were just telling the story before we came on air that the endocannabinoid system, which regulates your neurotransmissions, wasn't discovered until 1990. So a lot of medical doctors aren't even aware of what it does or what the role or how important a role this is for wellness and for, and just in terms of unlocking a lot of these medical riddles that have stymied doctors for a long time. But certainly we think we're scratching the surface of the science and understanding sort of the efficacious agility of the cannabis plant. Remember, humanity's had a 30,000-year relationship with this plant, and it was medicine. It was prescribed by the American Medical Association for over 100 indications before it was weaponized as an immigration tool in the 20s by the U.S. government. So, this is very much, this last 90 years is very much it's the exception rather than the rule in terms of society's relationship with cannabis. Going forward, the way we're framing our wellness book is, on the one side, we have these efficacy-driven solutions, right? Medicine, clinical trials, more traditional biotech pathway. That's where we get really excited because we think that's where the baton is going to get handed during this next phase of the cannabis secular bull market. But on the other side is really, I think, what the market's really beginning to understand, and that's really the consumer side of the equation, right? The beverages and the nutraceuticals and the consumer packaged goods, the bath bombs, right? That's going to be a huge market, and that's wellness as well. And even, we sort of have taken the gloves off between recreational and medical because we figure a lot of people have been self-medicating for a long time. They don't even realize that this is medicine. They think it's more of a discretionary vice.
Interesting. So are there any names you can share with us of up-and-coming companies that you're particularly excited about?
Well, on the biotech side, GW, I talked about Corbis, we're big fans of. I mean, there's a few others on the biosynthetic side. There's a company called InMed Pharmaceuticals, which is early, right, preclinical, but it's a biosynthetic, and we think that the trend is really going to move toward biosynthetics away from the more traditional farming side. So whenever we look at investments, we really try to, with the exception of Village Farms, which we think is a unique situation given their U.S. and Mexican optionality, we really try to steer clear of the pure cultivators, because we think the farming side is probably the least sexy side of the equation, right? The margins are all on the back end. And as we reach this equilibrium from a pricing standpoint, and cannabis comes online in entire continents, right? Whether it's South America or whether it's Australia, or whether all over the world, this is starting to come online. Ultimately, that's going to drive prices down. Who is that going to hurt? It's going to hurt the producers of the ingredient. Who's it going to help? It's going to help the consumers of the ingredient. So anybody who's using cannabis or hemp as an ingredient, which is sort of how we're looking at the world, we think they're going to benefit from lower prices in time. Margins are going to expand. That's why we look at the back end. That's why we look at end products. That's why we're looking at the consumer side as opposed to the farming side.
Sure. So we've seen some some of the financials come out from the earliest LPs that got in the game in Canada, and without exception, they have been underwhelming in terms of anything approaching the idea of profitability. If anything, the bigger they are, the more money they're losing, even though potentially you have to look at it as well. Yes, on an accounting basis, it counts as a loss, but from an investment perspective, in the case of Canopy particularly, where they've deployed $330 million in capital, well, they're sitting on $5 billion, and they're investing this capital to grow markets in other places. And so, yes, on the one hand, an accounting basis, it's a loss. On the other hand, it's an investment that hasn't started to produce yet. But what is your take on all of the earnings that we've seen so far this month and the ones that are yet to come?
Yeah, no, I think, first of all, we have about 9% of our portfolio in Canada right now because they've had big runs, because this is going to take some time, right? So what's our take is that, it's going to be sloppy. Anybody who bought Canopy or any of these names for their first quarter's earnings report, I think shouldn't be buying these stocks, right? These are long tail stories. They've got to grow into their multiples. They've got to use their paper to make accretive deals, right? They got to use their paper as currency, which we think we're going to see a lot of as soon as the U.S. gets in shape here. So, certainly bumpy. It's going to take time. It's going to take a few quarters, if not years, for these things to really start to demonstrate their value propositions. But we are skewed more heavily to U.S. operators for reasons that I'm happy to talk about. But by and large, we think that institutional demand is still in front of us, and that's why we're positioned as we are.
All right, Todd, we're going to leave it there for now. Very insightful as usual. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you in another week and see what you've got to say for yourself. I appreciate your input. Amazing, eh? So Todd is, interestingly, he's down to 9% Canadian companies in his portfolio. He's all cannabis, but only 9% Canadian.
So he's looking for the growth in the U.S.
Well, he's positioning towards he's oriented more towards the biotech, life sciences, the guys who are using cannabis as a medicine, as an ingredient in medicines, as a life sciences play, and he's bang on. GW Pharma is his biggest play. It's $180 a share since they were approved for the epilepsy drugs.
So how much money does this guy manage? Do you know?
I have not asked.
Okay.
So
is that a private? Is that his fund or is it?
It's a hedge fund. So I'm not.
And how did you associate yourself with him?
How did I first come? Well, actually, I think he reached out to us because he was watching the show and he made some comments that I thought were smart, and I saw that he was. I mean, maybe that's how. I can't actually remember how I first. That's for sure.
Fine. Yeah,
but that's what I think. That's what's in my head.
So the 100%, 10% is Canada, 90% is United States.
Well, he didn't say 90% is in the United States.
No, he said
10% is Canada.
Yeah,
but what is there outside of Canada? Well, there's GW Pharma, but that's U.S. listed. UK company, U.S. listed.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Interesting. Well, Afria is not acting particularly well today.
Afria.
Afria.
Afria. Well, I want to talk about Afria for a second because I'm going to pull up a chart here on a company that's been trading for exactly 3 days. And I got some intel on this from one of my...
Is that MJAR?
No, this is GGB. And
where is that trade?
Green Growth Brands. It trades on the CSE under the symbol GGB.
So that's CN.
Yeah. So I bought some down here this morning.
Well, it's been trading for 6 days.
Oh, no,
6 days.
Oh no, not there. Over here. There we go. Yeah. So this company has had a $55 million investment pre-IPO from a entity that was not clearly identified. Turns out that entity is a special purpose vehicle that is owned by Aphria. So Aphria has made a $55 million investment into GGB.
Does anybody know that?
No, it's not public knowledge. I just outed it. Because Aphria doesn't want to be seen owning directly assets in the United States.
Well, you think we should be talking about it?
No, probably not. We might have just spilled the beans.
The phone's ringing in there, and there's some angry...
Vic's on the phone saying, I need to get back on your show. Get me back. Actually, Vic, if you're watching, please come back. We haven't talked to you in forever. But yeah, so GGB. Now, what do you know about GGB? Do you know anything about them?
No, especially the fact that although somebody told the young fellow in the studio here mentioned to me that that there's some big money behind this.
That is true. That is true. So not only is there big money behind it, but they are deep of pocket and vastly experienced brand creators and managers. So these are the guys behind the brands of Victoria's Secret, behind the brand of American Apparel. And so in terms of like pedigree, making consumer brands that fly, it's the A-team. It is the A-team. And I had a PowerPoint here, and this is really odd that suddenly I can, oh, here it is. So checking out my GMI. There we go. Green Growth Bands. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Here is the lineup of people. We're going to have Peter Horvath on the show the next time he's in Toronto. And so these guys, this is a team that is one that any cannabis company that's in the consumer packaged goods space would love to have. Let's quickly move to their brand associations. Wait a second. Okay, where did they go? Okay, there was a slide here that had all of the brands that they had been associated with in the... Oh, there it was. There we go. Victoria's Secret, Bath & Body Works, American Eagle Outfitters, not American Apparel, Designer Shoe Warehouse. These are the brands that they've had participation in creating.
Oh, yeah.
So these guys also came to market, like whereas they could have come to market with a multi-billion-dollar market cap structure, they came to market with a $400 million market cap structure. So the thing that I like about this company is, A, it's got rock and roll brand royalty in it.
Right.
It's got a major investment from Aphria, who is arguably sucking hind tit in the great consumer packaged goods space among all the major LPs in Canada, so needs some help.
Check box.
And let's go down and see now what kind of access to capital are we talking here.
Well, they're going to have tons of, they're going to be able to raise what they want.
Exactly.
And they did it, you're saying they've taken the high road even by keeping the price low, like not being too...
Yeah, so here's the final slide I want to look at. They've generously supplied pro-forma financials. Now, this is remarkable because Startups don't generally provide pro forma financials, especially looking out 4 years. Yet they have.
So what do they show? Okay, it's right there.
Yeah. So they're talking $9 million in 2018. So that's like in another month they'll show either $9 million. So that's just it. My point is that they've set themselves up for such scrutiny because they've projected these numbers. 2019, 174 million in sales. 2020, 419 million. 2021, 690 million. It's like, boy, you guys must be pretty confident.
What's that? A beauty, personal growth, personal wrap up with 4,000 stores nationwide. Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm. So these guys are going to put these cannabisize a whole bunch of brands that they're already associated with. So it's not like they have to go out and necessarily find new locations and new stores and new products. They're going to take products that they've had a hand in developing and find a cannabis application for them. At least that's my own take on it. That's not.
And you might want to keep buying this one if it were to back off a little bit.
Yeah, well, I bought 10,000 shares today. Actually, I bought 20,000. Sorry, I bought 10 in one account, 10 in another. So I'm starting to accumulate a position.
Do the two accounts know that you did it to both of them?
They don't talk to each other.
Okay.
They know who each other are, but they know better than to talk to each other. So, anyways, so yeah, this is peeps.
Who brought this to your attention?
Well, who originally brought it to my attention was I can't disclose because it would reveal my source. But anyways, he was the guy who told me months ago to start buying the shell that this thing went into. He told me to start buying it at 10 cents. So could you imagine how happy I would be had I listened? So
I can't imagine you being any happier than you always are.
I can be happy. I can always be happier. You can always be a little bit happier.
I don't think so.
What do you mean?
I think when you're as happy as you can be, you can't be any happier.
Just as happy as you can be.
Like for instance, if you are extremely something really good happened and you're walking on air. Yeah, I think that's the feeling that, you know, whether you win $1 million or $1 billion or whatever, it's happy. Happy is, you can't put a number on it.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way I look at it. Anyway,
true.
Makes it easier.
That's a good point.
Anyway,
I
know, but it's nice to have a few extra bucks to get rid of the wolves.
One of the questions from the ladies was, what's your top 3 cannabis picks? And I was trying to think of things that I didn't own. And up until this morning, I didn't own this one. But now that I do, come to think of it, this is probably my top pick for next multi-billion-dollar unicorn in the cannabis space.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I put more money on this than I would on Curaleaf.
Who's the biggest shareholder? Do you know? It's probably some big...
I just found out about this company, Ed. I don't know everything yet. In fact, arguably, I don't know anything.
And this trades in the U.S.?
Yeah. The only downsides about this thing, it has that super voting structure. That means real shareholders...
It trades here.
Don't get a vote. I mean, yeah, it's on the CSE. Yeah. It's a cannabis company. So anyways, they're going to be up here marketing in the next month, and we're going to have them on the show. And you tell me if you don't agree that this is going to be one of the big...
Well, it certainly has all the makings.
Yeah.
You know.
So here's a quick shot of their first product, Mary Jane CBD water. On my NDI.
Where?
Where? There we go. Mary Jane CBD water. So doesn't that just make you want to guzzle one of those bottles and feel a little better about yourself?
I'm more of a THC guy myself, so.
Oh, well, I'm sure
makes you want to guzzle one.
Yeah, well, CBD water can be sold in every state. THC water, 15.
You can sell this in every...
Yeah. CBD water. CBDs are legal as long as it's derived from hemp until the Farm Bill passes, in which case CBDs will then be legal even if it's derived from the higher potency cannabis plant, of which hemp is just another name for. So everybody's out there saying, oh, there's the hemp plant and the cannabis plant. Incorrect. It's cannabis sativa or cannabis indica or cannabis ruderalis. They can all be hemp. They can all be marijuana. The only differentiation is, according to U.S. law, hemp has less than 3%, or is it 0.3% THC.
Right.
So, but there is no difference in the plant. And this is one of the major misconceptions that's floating around out there. Anyways, onward and upward, Edward. Now, next, should we get Cam Battley out here?
I think everybody wants.
Is it time to talk to Cam Battley?
Let's talk to.
And everybody want to talk to Cam Battley? Can we hear from the studio audience, please? Here he is! Yahoo! Without further ado! Welcome back, everybody. You won't believe who's here. It's Cam Battley, CCO of Aurora Cannabis, joining us for the, I don't know, 256th time?
It's been a few times.
It's been a few times. Cam, you just got back from Las Vegas.
Did I? Yes.
Las Vegas,
yes,
Sin City.
Sin City. Yeah,
Sin
and we
City.
Didn't commit a lot of sins, though. It was basically coffee and Red Bull the whole time.
Really?
Oh, there's a lot of business to be done.
There were some interesting news items about, you know, some Aurora items.
Well, tell me what's on your mind.
Well, I mean, the interesting sort of story in the Financial Post was, you know, a criticism, I would say, of CEO Terry Booth's discourse during his panel presentation at the conference.
So seriously, if people don't know by now that Terry is an Alberta entrepreneur, he's not a banker, he's not a lawyer, he's an Alberta entrepreneur, and he's a straight shooter, I don't think they should really be surprised.
Right.
So no, you know, the other thing to bear in mind is, look, we were in the kind of atmosphere that has froth and fun. It's a casual atmosphere at the MJ Biz conference. This is where, you know, people come together with different perspectives and ideas and positions. That's what's supposed to happen. That's what makes the whole conference a success. And the other thing is, you know, Terry spoke very specifically about what, for example, Ontario has done right in terms of the new government, the Ford government, came in and very decisively said, you know, the previous vision for retail in Ontario was a government monopoly. We don't think that's the way to go. We're going to do something different. So they shifted gears and they did it fast and they did it decisively. And I think you'll find that Terry said some very positive things about that.
He did. He did. And we actually looked at the comments in the Financial Post and said, well, the bottom line here is this is a guy who's created so much wealth for so many people that if he wants
and fast too.
And if he wants to cuss and swear, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
I think most people have heard these words before.
That's right. And
no, but that is the point too. Look, this is the guy with the vision, who in less than 3 years from the sale of our first gram of medical cannabis has taken us from the 24th company to get licensed to delivering last week, and I hope we can talk about this. The highest revenue number with that the industry has ever seen. So
let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about our earnings.
Okay, so you reported earnings of $30 million.
Yeah, well, actually better than that, about 30 million. But on a pro forma basis, if we had wrapped in all 3 months of MedRelief, it actually would have been even better, about 35.8 million. And that is by far the most powerful revenue quarter that any cannabis company has delivered thus far, and we're very proud of that.
Sure. The other item in your financials that intrigued me was the one-time win of $85 million from, what was that?
Oh, from appreciation in our capital investments. So these are our marketable securities.
Oh, so you didn't sell a block of stock?
We didn't sell that much, no.
Okay.
So what we've done with our accounting is acknowledge the fact that we've made strategic investments in certain companies, and those investments have appreciated. So our shareholders have done well, the company's done well, and our partners have done well. And so that's what you're seeing reflected there. And the rest of it, across the board, I was very, very proud of the way the company delivered, particularly on a logistical level, because, you know, everybody had a lot of questions as to how licensed producers were going to be able to, you know, hit the ground running or not upon the launch of consumer legalization. There were so many SKUs, and we had 250 SKUs that we had to ship to 13 or 12 different jurisdictions. I think we got 12 of 13 jurisdictions in the country, covering 98% of the population.
Right. You were 1/3 of the sales across Canada.
No, we can't say that because we don't have those kind of metrics. What we did report in our earnings was Ontario, because Ontario's website, the Ontario Cannabis Store website, did provide some early insights. And what we were able to measure is that we had about 30% of the sales in Ontario upon the launch of consumer legalization, and also did exceedingly well in British Columbia, where we had the top four selling brands and products in British Columbia, and 5 of the top 10. So I think we impressed out of the gate. I think we did very, very well, and I want to give a lot of credit to our logistics and operations team, because that's a very complex operation. They had to carry it out in a very short period of time, and they did it near flawlessly, and I'm very, very pleased.
Interesting. So let's talk a bit about what's happening at Aurora Sky. I mean, we visited you recently. We're going to release a video very shortly on that visit, and it was very impressive. I'm curious
it's a cool
as
facility,
to,
isn't it?
Yeah, has it started to actually pump out product now that's matured and dried and shipping into the market?
Yes, it has.
Let me ask
Remember,
you,
we got our sales license on October 17th,
Right.
Or we announced it then.
Right.
So we announced that on the day of consumer legalization.
Right. So here's the conundrum I have, is that
What's your
we've got
conundrum?
all these companies that are producing at maximum capacity, and I visited most of these things
Yeah.
with warehouses full of product ready to go, yet across
did
the
it go?
country, everybody's out.
I know, and that puzzles
Where'd
us.
the weed go?
I know that puzzles us too, because we kept hearing the same thing, that there
Right.
were some companies that said that they were stockpiling product for up to or even over a year, and then it didn't seem to materialize when it was needed up upon the launch. Now maybe companies are holding some back and they're going to be shipping it over a different period of time. I don't have insight into that, but we were puzzled by that outcome as well. Because
Is it conceivable that perhaps the shelf life of cannabis, it's not something, even though you vacuum pack it, it's not going to be in a condition that you would qualify as premium dried flower 1 year after it's been harvested and packaged?
I would put it this way. I would not want us sending products to the retail markets that had been stockpiled for too long.
Well, we've been smoking a lot of your product around here. Everybody's very...
Well, thank you very much for that.
We can't keep it in stock either. Particularly Ed is very fond of Aurora's product.
So you've been satisfied customers?
Well, I've been relatively happy, yes.
Okay.
More happy than normal.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
I
I'm more of a
have no
CBD
immediate
guy.
response to that.
Okay, so then now what are the big... So everybody's looking at these earnings that have come out since the October, since November 1st.
Especially our stellar earnings.
Well, your stellar earnings, but they're underwhelming as a whole. I mean, if you
As a
look at the
sector.
valuations
Yeah.
relative to the earnings at this point, and there are some easy answers here that we have to bring to light.
Justifying valuations? Yeah.
Yeah, justifying valuations, especially in the terms of if you're trying to use a earnings multiple valuation technique, it doesn't work.
No, we're not a bank.
Right.
We're not a mature industry that's been around for 20 or 40 or 50 or 100 years. right?
Sure. So that has catalyzed a revaluation of the whole sector to the downside by, call it 30% since the onset of the weekness in the S&P and the broader markets globally.
I question that. Is it a revaluation or is it just one of the pullbacks that we see? Look, we've been watching this sector since it was born 4 years ago or 5 years ago.
Right.
And one of the things that thus far has characterized the cannabis sector is a lot of volatility. So big run-ups and then pullbacks, run-ups and then pullbacks. And we've seen that as a constant pattern. I do find that we have to reassure people who haven't been in it for that many cycles of ups and downs that this seems to be the nature right now. And of course, we understand the reasons why. You and I have discussed many times that we will get to a point very soon, I would say within, let's say 18 months at the outside, where we're going to be valuing cannabis companies based on their fundamentals, right? Based on their revenues and their EBITDA. We can't do that yet, so people are projecting forward, and they're valuing the leading companies like us and Canopy and a few others based on an estimate of multiple on future earnings. Right? So that's what's happening, and it's realistic. It's realistic because you can't use the traditional measures, the traditional metrics of fundamentals in an industry that is not just nascent, but also growing incredibly fast. And one measure of that is take a look at what happened in our earnings in our year over year. On a pro forma basis, our earnings were up, or our revenues were up more than 300%. Some of that came from organic growth, some of that came from the addition of CanniMed, some of that came from the addition of MedRelief and Anandia and some of our other companies. But the bottom line is these leading companies in this sector, Aurora included definitely, are growing incredibly fast. And we know where we're going. And so the projections are not pulled out of anybody's hindquarters. They're coming from the metric that we're using right now of funded capacity. So if we know what the funded capacity is today, and in 12 months' time, and in 18 months' time, you can then calculate a rough estimate as to what the top line revenues for the leading companies are going to be. And with Aurora and Canopy, for example, both companies have more than 500,000 kilograms or 500 million grams of funded capacity, which suggests that by early 2020, that's going to be the annual run rate of production, of sales, and therefore, with a number in front of that, whatever number you choose, in front of 500 million, that'll give you an idea as to what the top line revenues will be. So it's not perfect. It is a little rough. It is early days, but boy, this industry has been validated as real, legitimate, and long-term.
Sure. What would you say to the idea that that much funded capacity might represent overcapacity and thus induce a price competition in the price of the cannabis itself, rendering the projected margins of companies like Aurora and Canopy a little bit less than accurate?
You know, I always really love your compound questions, but I'm going to stick with that.
This is how I convince people that I know what I'm talking about.
And you do, you certainly do. So I'm going to track that. So there's two answers to your question. The first is 500,000 kilograms per year overcapacity? And the answer to that is an emphatic no. And here's the reason why. I've said this before, but the central fact of the global cannabis sector is a massive excess of demand over supply for legal regulated cannabis. Legal regulated cannabis. There's no shortage of cannabis in the world, obviously, there never has been. But legal regulated cannabis is in short supply. In even more short supply is legal regulated cannabis that comes out of facilities that meet the standard of European Union Good Manufacturing Practices, EU GMP. And by the way, that bodes well for us because we have 2 of the 6 facilities that are certified as EU GMP, and our European distributor, formerly Pedanios, now Aurora Deutschland, is also EU GMP certified. So big picture, there's massive demand and not even close to enough supply, and there won't be for years and years and years, long time. The second thing is, I think, more specific to Canada, and you're saying, will we end up with a price competition situation where there's a lot of supply in Canada and pressure on margins? If that's the case, we've planned for that. That is a specific scenario that we've planned for with Terry, with our CFO, Glenn Ibbott. And the nice thing is, we're low-cost producers. We're already among the lowest cost producers in the industry. And with our Sky class facilities coming online, starting with Aurora Sky, which is up and running at Edmonton International Airport, we're going to be producing a lot of cannabis at under $1 a gram. We think well under $1 a gram. Now, if you've got the ability to produce for such low cost, and you're highly recognized for the quality of your products, and you're producing premium products that are obviously in demand, then you're not looking at any problems in the domestic market, and you're certainly not looking at any challenges in the international markets where demand is going to exceed supply for a long time to come. That's a long-winded answer.
Compound answer to a compound question. I'm shocked. No, that's great. Okay, so 500,000 kilograms per year. You're involved right now in 40 clinical trials.
40 that we've either completed or are currently underway, plus 7 preclinical studies that we have underway. So our science program is very strong. I actually would venture to say it's the strongest in the world, because we've added Aurora, strong in science, to Canamed, strong in science, MedRelief, strong in science, and then Anandia Labs. And I don't know that there's a stronger deep cannabis science company in the world. Remember, that was founded, co-founded by Dr. Jonathan Page, who is now last week was appointed our chief science officer,
right.
And he led the team that was the first to sequence the cannabis genome. So the level of science underlying our work has increased dramatically over the last 12 months. We have more than 40 PhDs and Masters of Science working in the company right now. The level of research, you indicated the number of studies either completed or underway, is very significant. And it's happening not just in Canada, but in jurisdictions around the world. And we intend to expand on that further in 2019. And the level of new product development, which is also tied into the science. I should have mentioned Dr. Kelly Nareen, who's also a PhD, and she's our head of research. She works closely with Dr. Shane Morris, one of our other PhDs. We have what I call a PhD row.
Right.
And he heads up our new product development. He's the one who, together with his team, was responsible for launching the first vape cartridge in the Canadian medical system. We call it Aurora Cloud, and this is
appropriate.
Isn't it? But it's actually, I'm sorry to tell you, or maybe not, it's a CBD cartridge.
Oh no, that's right up my alley.
I know. So it's a very, very elegant and in-demand product, and it's a vape cartridge that fits in one of the standard gauges to the batteries that people can buy in many places. And it's a 55% concentration of CBD. And as soon as we launched it, it just absolutely flew off the shelves.
Okay. At this point, is Aurora finding itself in a position where it's able to supply more cannabis than it can produce, or is it the opposite, that you're building up a surplus of cannabis globally?
Are we able to supply more cannabis than we can produce? We're ramping up. There's no question. So
at this point, though, you're still finding that everything you produce is swept off the shelves by demand.
Yeah, well, and if you think about that, that's pretty much always going to be the case. We're not going to be putting cannabis on shelves to get aged, as we talked about earlier, because we've got 3 market segments that we're selling into right now, and the demand is powerful in all of them. We've got nearly 70,000 registered patients in the Canadian medical system, and we have to meet their needs. And we've also been making sure that we have a diversity of products on our menu at all times so that their needs can be met. We've got the Canadian consumer system, we've got our partners, the provinces and the retail systems, and we need to supply them and make sure that those systems work as well as possible. And I want to circle back and deal with some of the criticism that the provinces have taken, because I think it's out of line, and remind me about that. And then the third market segment that we're serving, obviously, is our growing number of international markets. We don't favor the second 2 over the first. The first is our greatest responsibility, our registered patients. That's a matter of trust, and we have to meet their needs first. Second and third, the consumer market and the international medical markets, we're trying to do a very, very good and wise job of product allocation to make sure that nobody is let down.
Okay.
Now, we were going to come back and talk about the criticism of the provinces, and I think it is out of line because, as I've been saying for several months...
We've been criticizing the provinces rather egregiously ourselves.
Well, you know what?
Well, just this province. This is the one where we have...
Everybody's looking for... you know, in the media, they say they don't report the planes that land, right? Meaning everybody's always, looking for the anomaly, and that would be bad news. I don't think that there's any bad news here. I think that the provinces are doing a pretty darn good job of putting together a hurry-up concept with respect to their respective retail systems. It will take some time to adjust, and it's to be anticipated that there will be some bumps in the road when you are launching a nationwide, very complex new system with 13 different jurisdictions and a whole lot of SKUs.
You bet. All right, Cam, well, we could go on forever, but our time is up, and thank you once again for joining me. That was great. Hey, they cut me off there. I wasn't finished.
Well, just pretend you're doing it live.
I did say that. And here I am. ACB, Aurora Cannabis.
Big...
Up 22 cents at the end of the day. Just ticked up on our little show there.
Yeah.
If you're watching, Cam and Mark, that was our show that did that.
So Weed's up nicely. Aurora's up.
Well,
but Afria isn't.
Afria's not, but I wanted to draw the attention to, again, the S&P 500 versus the Midas Letter Cannabis Large Cap Index here. We can see that the end of the day, this is intraday, so at the end of the day, starting at about 3 p.m., the S&P went into a fall, and starting at, 3 p.m., just shortly after, the cannabis sector also went into a swoon.
Right.
So again, it's not like they mirror each other in real time, but...
No, but there's similarities.
There's similarities.
Sure.
So yesterday you said there was a tradable bottom. What is this today, Ed? The end of the day. Is this a escape hatch?
That's the daily. That's the 1 day, right?
Intraday. That's why we don't have...
I know. You know what? That shouldn't be right there. Okay. So...
Anyway, so what do you think, Ed? End of day.
I'm going to take a look at a little bit. I want to see the candle as it relates to the previous candle. So just let me get this up here. Yeah, you know what? I'm not. I think we got to do more work. I think it's going to slop around here. I think we're in a. We've broken the pattern of down, 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 mercilessly down all the time. I think that, and now we're just sort of creating a bottom. And so this bottom, now how long a chart is that? S&P.
Those are intraday, 5 day rather.
5 day. Yeah, put up a 10 day.
10 day, 10 day.
Yeah. So, bit of a rally. I think we're going to go back and do a little bit of a test here
on the bottom.
Yeah, yeah, but nothing, like I think, you know, like for instance, Apple didn't really budge today, you know, so Amazon was up nicely. It backed off a bit. Let me see here.
Canopy closed up $2.12.
It's easier to be optimistic when everybody else is pessimistic. And now if there's a little bit of optimism, it changes a bit. Look at Canopy up there, up 212. Yeah. Yeah, the S&P, that's not the greatest looking candle, but it hasn't breached yesterday's lows. So I think we're doing some work here. You know, there was a number of things that had nice moves in the cannabis space. There were quite a number of them that were up.
Yep.
I think we take the day for what it is, and tomorrow's going to be deadly quiet. You know that, eh? Like there's going to be nothing going on.
Why? Because it's Thanksgiving?
Because it's American Thanksgiving, yeah.
So are you saying that everything that happens on Canadian markets is American-based? I think tomorrow, because you're not going to see any action in the S&P, because you're not going to see any data out of the FANGs, I think tomorrow is going to be the most representative day of Canadian cannabis stocks that we will see this year.
Yeah, maybe.
Because at the end of the day, the U.S. acts as an interference to the signal versus the noise. The U.S. can be so much noise because there's so much other data coming in to affect the general direction and sentiment of markets. Take the U.S. noise out of the equation, and what you get is a pure signal relative to this sector. That's my end of day takeaway.
I'd like to know how much money is involved in the Canadian market on any given day, roughly. Like how much money? How much U.S.
money? How much U.S. money?
Yeah, which I don't know, but you'll see tomorrow. The volumes will be way down. And maybe not the cannabis stocks, but certainly bank stocks will be quiet. Everything will be quieter.
Well, I guess we'll be able to extrapolate an average of the down from the mean volume of the month and be able to say that's the percentage of U.S. dollars.
Another thing, if like say the interlisted ones, for instance, Weed and Aurora, if they have big days in Canada, there's going to be a catch up on Friday when that market opens, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they'll all.
Well, there's an interesting exercise. Let's look at ACB in the U.S., and then we're going to look at ACB in Canada. And let's just look volumetrically where the action is. So here we have Aurora on the NYSE, 625 a share. Aurora in Canada, yeah, 825 a share. But the volumes look extremely similar.
Yeah.
Like let's take this day here, which is an anomalous 193,000
million.
193,000 or just about a million. Yeah. Okay.
Oh no, that's probably like a 3 minute. You're looking at less than a day there. You're looking at 10 minutes or something like
10 days I'm looking at.
I know, but I'm saying one line.
6 months.
One line might be only a few hours.
Okay. Now, what are we seeing here? That the volume is the biggest day, 39.84 in the United States. That was Wednesday, October 24th. Same day in Canada. 33.4 million. Oh, okay. So the bigger volumes are definitely in Canada on Aurora, even though it's trading in the NYSE. So today, for example, 8 million shares traded in the New York Stock Exchange, and the candles look lower because there's a different scale, but it's 11 million shares traded here. So it's not entirely unheard of that U.S. money is trading on the Canadian exchange, just not U.S. dollar denominated, but it could be U.S. funds trading in Canada, because if they were trading Aurora before it got its NYSE listing, would you necessarily blow out your Aurora shares in Canada and put them on the NYSE? Maybe, maybe not. And I think what we'll do is we'll have a money manager in to discuss that very question. Note to Suzanne, find money manager who trades from the United States.
Well, the charts are identical, obviously, because they're the same stock, right?
All right. You know what? Enough of this tomfoolery, Ed. It's time for Ask Us Anything.
Okay.
Hey, Ed and
Here we
James.
go.
I have a very large umbrella type question regarding the U.S. economy. I'm wondering, with the current state of the government and all the falsities that are happening in the U.S., why is the economy still so strong in the U.S.?
Why is the economy still so strong in the U.S.? Well, one might argue that it's definitely not that strong at this point, that it's gone into a bear market phase.
Right.
And but why is it so strong? Despite the financial crisis that they caused, it's got one word, or two words actually, zero, it's actually two phrases, zero interest rates and quantitative easing. So they printed so much money, which is essentially liquidity. They've issued so many U.S. bonds that form Tier 1 capital that then enter the banking system and are fractionally banked out to a multiple to create more liquidity in the system. There's so much liquidity in the system that liquidity has to chase assets. Liquidity never stays idle. And so that's why the last 8 years of the bull market. It's not that the economy itself was fundamentally strong. It's that it was so overjuiced with liquidity that this is the result.
But, you know, they have full employment. You know,
because they juiced the economy with all that liquidity.
I know, but if they were saying unemployment's 10%, that's not like saying it's 3.8. You know,
yeah, but my point is that if we all just printed money to deploy into chasing assets, which results in more demand for more products, which results in more investment in more infrastructure to develop products,
right,
then every economy would be on fire. So this is one of the great frauds of the United States that most people don't recognize, is that, never mind the military, the greatest weapon of global domination in the current era is the US dollar. China understands this very well, which is why they're making a play to make the yuan the big alternative currency by lending it out at low interest rates to all of the countries that the US doesn't have dominance in at this point. So that's why the oil trade is US dollar denominated. That's why the gold trade is, it's all about US dollar global dominance as the unit of trade, therefore the unit of reserve currency. Convoluted answer to the question, and probably there's a bunch of conservative old farts sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, this guy is a conspiracy theorist." Oh, okay. Another question. Here we go.
I would really like to know where oil and gas is going in Canada.
Where's oil and gas going in Canada?
The oil is going into a refinery, and the gas
is coming out your ass.
Gas is going into your car. Now, you know what?
Where's the price of oil and gas?
We've got the lowest price of oil in the world.
Right.
Our oil in West.
Because it's stranded. Largely stranded. We have no refining capacity to speak of.
Due to government policies, mainly, in our country. But that's okay. They don't want it. They don't want a dirty country.
To the gentleman's question,
I don't know.
Where is the price of oil and gas going?
You know, eventually, you got to wonder about oil. Like, don't you think that they're going to, like we used to be in steam, and, you know, oil. In other words, there's an evolution in energy. Eventually, we're going to be solar. It's going to be solar electric. No, I mean, eventually, it's just a matter of how long.
Eventually,
you know, and Trump didn't want to piss off the Saudis because he said if we did something that the price of oil would be driven higher. I mean, I don't know. This, you know, who knows?
Trump didn't do anything about the Saudis because Trump is a pussy with zero conscience. Just saying.
Yeah.
Anyways, any upstanding man of principle would never tolerate the assassination of a journalist by even a nation if they had 1 ounce of integrity.
Yeah.
That's my position.
So all these other countries don't have any integrity at all.
Well, Germany stopped arms sales to Saudi Arabia.
But Saudi Arabia doesn't have any integrity, right?
The prince of Saudi Arabia, who runs the country, is a murderer. And Donald Trump is his apologist. So no, neither of those gentlemen have any integrity. But I'm not saying all Saudi Arabians have no integrity.
I'm going to stay away from judging humans because...
But Ed, your every step is a judgment. Your every thought is a judgment.
You know what? Follow those who seek the truth. Flee from those who have claimed to have found the truth. I can't say it any other way. I don't know. I don't know anything. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see if they resolve something in the trade world, which you know, like we've had a big correction, but we've had a big run up though, right?
Yes,
like,
we have.
Like
yes,
triple the amount of money that we had since 2008.
Okay, so some questions from the audience now. Kemp Consulting. Hello, Mary Kemp. Nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us. No funk in that shirt today, James. Where's the funk?
The funk's in the pocket square.
This is a dusty rose-colored shirt, which, you know, not a lot of guys on Bay Street are wearing dusty rose-colored shirts. Plus, I would point out my jaunty little puff, which has a bit of the aforementioned paisley. That, you know, so every once in a while, the wardrobe has to have a break while it regroups and thinks about what it's going to do tomorrow. Tell you what, just for you, Mary Kemp, I am going to go shopping after work. Next question. Bert G. Will ACB, you think, reach 20 next year? Think he means, do you think ACB will touch $20 this year? We're going to assume you're talking the Canadian dollar. If it touched $20 US, that implies 24 Canadian? No, more. 26 Canadian. 27, 28 Canadian. Whoa! Will it reach $20 next year? As Ed said, gravitate towards those who seek to know the truth and flee those who claim to have found it. Thus, if I told you, you would have to run away. If I feign ignorance, then I am worthy of your... Never mind. ACB, do I think it will reach $20 next year?
6.25 to 20. The whole cannabis space would have to have a hell of a run.
I think Aurora will exceed $20 per share at some point next year. Don't say it's going to stay there, but it will definitely breach $20. I think. That's my thought. As a non-shareholder and as a... They're not even a client right now.
They're not?
Technically, no.
Okay.
Technically, no. They're behind. Anyways, just kidding. Mr. Edward... is his name, says, hey guys, what do you think about day trading weed stocks instead of holding them overnight with this volatile market? Well, if you hold them overnight, you're not day trading. Technically.
You're night trading.
You're night trading.
You know.
Well, so in the volatile economy like this, where the S&P is starting to look like it's falling apart, generally, I would love to be in cash at the end of the day. But the problem is, if I sold everything I had right now, I'd definitely be locking in a great deal of loss. So I'm content to hang on and let it hopefully appreciate, because I'm not a trader per se. I don't have time to sit on top of the market and try to buy, sell stocks all day as a smart guy. So my answer is, you know, if you're not comfortable leaving your money in the market, take it out. I know, useless advice, right?
When it's a buy and hold market, like we saw the S&P move from wherever, from 2010 to, you know, earlier here this year, a couple times we got to that lofty level and we had correction. You know, it works if you're buying, but if you get into a choppy market where there's indecision, taking money off the table, especially good profits, is a prudent thing to do. You can always buy it back, you know, but look.
So how do you juxtapose that logic with the idea of buy and hold?
Well, buy and hold, depending on the kind of market we're in. If we're in a long-term, you know, secular bull or cyclical bull or whatever kind of bull market it is, buying and hold is the best approach. That's what, you know, your Warren Buffetts, they do. They buy for the longer term.
Yeah, so that's sort of what I've decided, back to your point there, Mr. Edward, is I have decided that I'm going to stop trying to trade the smaller penny stocks, and I'm going to buy quality and I'm going to hold it because I'm looking at the longer term.
Yeah. Well, if you think, you know, Aurora at these prices would be a great buy if you thought it was going to be $20 in a year.
That's a good point.
That's three times your money.
That's a good point.
Is he talking 20 US or 20 Canadian?
I still don't like Aurora at this point as much as I like Green Branch brands.
Now there's one that, you know, maybe we should do a little. You should talk about it. I guess we talked about it earlier.
We did.
Okay.
We've had enough. we're going to talk about other things now.
Yeah.
So Maxed Out says, why do you guys say to the people in the chat room that you're just here to pump companies that suit your own interests? Thanks. What do you guys say to the people in the chat room that say we are just here to pump our own interests, that suit our own interests? Well, okay, let's see. How about that's exactly what we disclose in all of our literature, in all of our websites, and all of our web presence, that we are not journalists. We are self-interested market participants, and we are here to make money. And the whole point of our show is to demonstrate what we're doing and why we're doing it, so that the audience can sort of say, huh, that's a thought I haven't had, or that's a good idea, or whatever your thoughts are. But it's not accurate to say that we only talk about things that we hold, because we talk I'd say 80% of what we discuss are companies we don't hold, or
I
are
surely
not
don't
clients.
hold them.
Yeah, so we do mention our clients and our holdings, but they are our clients and our holdings because we do believe in them for the most part. Now, everybody's popping up juju, and sometimes we're wrong. If we were to try to pretend we were never wrong, we would not be credible. Right. And juju is a case where we were wrong. I have no problem admitting that.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to be the biggest loser on that trade as anybody in this room at least. So that's what I would say to people who think that we talk only our book.
Yeah.
There, hope that's satisfactory.
Yeah.
And plus we're great entertainment, as Don LaPointe says. Come on.
And in a market that becomes more mature, like the cannabis market, more attention is going to be paid to the better companies in the group, and the companies with marginal interests. Like, for instance, the gentleman that I spoke to earlier that told me about the GGB told me about another company that looks like Health Canada is going to cut their whatever. And he said, take a look at this one, and it was down from, I think, 49 cents to 22 cents. You know about that one? I can't remember the name of it.
No, I don't. Thanks, mates, but just so you know, just know GGB is private. No, it trades under the symbol GGB on the CSE, just for your information there, Mr. Edward. Bought 20,000 shares today, so I know it's public.
Fake shares.
Fake shares, yeah. Ryan Bateman says, I don't like your suit. Ryder Bateman, sorry. I like your shirts way better. Ryder? Now I'm really upset.
Now he's upset.
And now I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to go change. No, I can't.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'll go change my shirt. I had a
change
stack
right
of
on the
shirts
set.
That's what I was going to do. I was going to tear the shirt off of my back and put a new one on. But, so anyways, Maxed Out says, thanks for asking my questions, Midas Control. I love these guys.
Midas Control.
Yeah, they're talking to the guys in the control room now. All right, so let's go back to the Midas Letter indexes. Let's talk about some companies in which, last 10 minutes of the show, just to keep you guys happy, we're going to talk about companies in which we have zero interest. And we're going to talk shit about them. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, only I found that funny. So let's see how the large caps did today. Who did the best performance? Who did the worst? We're going to range them by performance. Canopy Growth won hands down, put on 5% today, closed up 212 to 44.64. Number 2, T-God put on 14 cents, up 4.43% to 330. Organigram Holdings came in third on the large caps, up 3.85% to 540. Now, let's go look at the CSE, shall we?
Okay, Pilgrim.
You all right with that, partner?
I certainly am, Pilgrim.
Okay. We're going to range these by who performed the best. Medica Enterprise up 30% today, up 3 cents to 13 cents. So that's penny stock. Rise Life Sciences up 22% to 22 cents, up 4 cents. Alternate Health Core up 10 cents. So these are all sub-penny stocks, sub-dollar stocks.
10 cents. And it's maybe too early to say it, but we've had a big cleansing here in the market, and today we've got an up day, but it doesn't feel like it's a wild up day. It seems kind of orderly. You're not seeing, like, for instance, I'm a little surprised that Afria hasn't participated. As one of the big ones.
Afria didn't participate? Let's see there. Let's go back to that. I thought everything was up there.
APHA.
Oops. Full screen.
Full screen.
Next page. Afria. No, you're right. Afria closed flat. 1169. That's interesting. Why did Afria not participate? Obviously in somebody's bad books. or in nobody's books, period. Let's go take a look. Why is Afria not participating in today's? Oh, great. Oh, we still got the wrong symbol in there. Man, APHA. That's why it didn't participate. Okay, Afria stock price today. Pot stock news. Why is this pot stock news in here? This is not news. This is somebody's bullshit promotion that they've got into the news feed. Okay, so we're not going to read that news because pot stock news is bullshit.
Hard to find.
Don't pay any attention to that bullshit. Whole bunch of bullshit news in the news feed these days. All these news wires are really sucking hind tit in terms of curating news. Used to be, if it went to the news release section, it was all news releases. In other words, only news that the companies put out, but not anymore. Anyways, that's annoying. So Afria, yeah, didn't participate. Actually, it's really looking very ill.
You know, I got to tell you, there's a lot of support around 9 Canadian.
We're going to have to get Vic on the show Canadian, and ask him what the hell's going on. Okay, so further on the CSE, go to the index page. What happened on the CSE in terms of good performers that traded over $1? Okay, so Green Thumb Industries added 2.34% to close at 14.86. Canada Royalty, now known as Origin House, closed up 1.46%, adding 12 cents to 8.34. All right, Suniva up 1.2%, 4.21. What else? Ooh, Planet 13 had a great day, up 2.6% to 270. I think, are we getting close to a 52-week high? No, the 52-week high for Planet 13 was 350.
It's 270 now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And you know what? Every day we're going to learn more clues, but I'm going to sort of say, we're not going to have much to tell you tomorrow, technically, because there's not going to be a lot of action. That's been my experience. In fact, tomorrow's usually a good day to play poker and drink beer and watch football.
So while Ed's doing that, we will be looking at the
it's not going to be doing that, but that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people take tomorrow off.
In the United States?
Here in Canada.
Really?
Well, yeah,
how do you get to take the day off if you got a job?
You're not a football fan.
I'm a football player.
What team?
Dallas Cowboys.
I've changed the name from the top because I made a bet on the Cowboys recently and they lost, so I changed the name to the Dallas Cow Turds.
Oh!
You know, Cowboys, Cow Turds. Dallas Cow Turds.
Boy, I'm sure a lot of people in Dallas right now are pretty happy about that.
Well, you know what? Listen, I like the Dallas Cowboys, but when they lose, they lost, they shit the bed the other day. I think it was a Thursday night game or a Monday night game. Aptly referred to as the Dallas Cow Turds. Okay. You know what that franchise is worth?
No.
It's billions. It's
really
billions and billions.
Well, that's because they had those cheerleaders for so many years. That were the hottest things
the reason.
Sliced bread.
That's the reason. That's a good.
Well, that's why. It had nothing to do with football.
Hashtag me too. I don't even know.
There we go.
Okay, so look at.
All right.
We'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah. And what else?
This MedMen is puzzling because you would have thought
that
they raised all that huge money. It's 80 cents. And I think the commission would be 6 or 7%.
Do we still have those press releases around? Because somebody made an interesting comment. Did they actually also have to give a warrant with that repriced?
Full one. They went from a half warrant to a full warrant.
Okay, so this is this to me is shareholder revolt.
Often, I don't know. Look. Like for instance.
Well, you just got diluted at a greater rate because of the price reduction, and at double the rate thanks to the warrant full warrant. So if
more disturbing is that people are willing to sell this thing at $470 when they just paid $550 with a full warrant.
Well, I don't think the people who paid $550 are the ones selling.
Well, you know what? You'd get the full warrant for free.
Wait a sec. So if it's institutional play, then
what if the warrant's worth $1? So you could then sell your stock at $470, keep the warrant, which is worth $1, and you're up 20 cents. Those warrants, I think, are trading, aren't they? Let's find out.
Let's find out.
MedMen warrants.
MedMen warrants. MedMen warrants. MedMen warrants.
Where does that MedMen trade?
CSE. CNX is the
WT, because, excuse me, .wt colon, who's got a colon? I do. Medmen.warrant, okay, CNX. I don't know if this is going to work. Probably not. Oh, yeah, look at this. There they are. Well, these are MedMen warrants that are trading at 87 cents. I don't know when they came out, but it looks like they've been out now since middle of September. So they probably came with the issue. But they were as high as 340, and now they're 87 cents. I don't know the details of those warrants, unfortunately. But look at, yeah, if you bought the thing at 550, you could say, okay, I'm going to get rid of the stock and hold the warrant, and now I've got a call on MedMen. So if MedMen goes wherever, you're in, and you've taken most of your capital off the table. So that might be what's going on here, because I also pretty sure my friend at Cannaccord told me that in the first go around, there was only going to get half a warrant, and you had to hold it for 4 months or 6 months. But now you don't have to hold it, and you've got it a whole warrant. Okay. So that justifies the stock. That Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm glad I thought of that.
Yeah.
Because now I don't feel so itchy to buy it.
Anyways, so tomorrow, who have we got on the show? We've got a lot of people on the show. If you want us to answer questions, make a little video and ask us the question. We'll put that on the show, and then we'll answer your question.
Yeah.
Let's see, tomorrow, who do we have here? I'm going to look at the schedule. Oh, my calendar's not even open. Tomorrow's Thursday. Who do we have? Charles Turk is going to be here from the 9 Point Faircourt Asset Management. No, it's now the 9 Point UIT Alternative Healthcare Fund. It's not Faircourt Asset Management anymore. Charting Man Dan is going to be here for another conversation with his technical skills.
Yeah.
We're going to have an interview with Bertan Attalay, who is the new CFO of Current Water, WATR. Is that the symbol? Let's see. And then we have an interview coming tomorrow with Jason Wilson from ETFMG, Alternative Harvest ETF Partner. Okay, well, whatever that means. And then, oh no, that's not going to be an interview. Then we're going to have a conversation at the end of the day with Clint Sharples from Heritage Cannabis. Anyways, thus concludes our show. Thank you for joining us. Please tell your friends, and don't forget to subscribe or subscribe to the newsletter on the website, because soon we're going to start telling people what we're buying and why we're buying it there. And go to Midas Letter Clips if you want to see any of these segments that we just aired. If you want to just find the clip, they'll be there shortly, not in a week, as one of our chat room guests tried to make everybody think. Anyways, that's our show for today. Thank you. Goodbye.
So long.